So this is our video for intermediate tumble, which is on Tuesdays from 7:30 to 8:30. And a lot of the video that I'm going to be showing you is exercises for your child to do at home, because a lot of what we do in class is spotted and I don't want them to fall and get hurt, and not a lot of people have access to a tumble mat at home, so I don't want them tumbling and hitting their head and getting hurt. So when we start our class, we usually start, each child does 25 crunches and 25 sit-ups. So at this time you can pause the video and your child can do their 25 crunches and 25 sit-ups, and then after that we will move on to our other exercises. So after that we will do some jumping jacks, so your child can do 10 to 20 jumping jacks. I usually have my younger kids do 10 and then my older ones will do 20. This is a big class and there are different skill levels that I do have to teach in this class, so not a lot, it won't all be the same for your child. So after that we'll do our 10 jumping jacks. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. After that we will start stretching. So I usually have them start in a butterfly, flapping, bringing their knees up and down to stretch their hips out, and then after they sit in a butterfly for a couple seconds, then they can start putting their nose to their toes and stretching out their hips. So they'll come down and up, about 4 or 5 times down, and up, go down, and up, and down, and up. And then after that, we'll stretch into a pike. I like to encourage them to keep their legs straight, squeezing them together, keeping their hands in their laps and not using their arms for their support so they can engage their core muscles. And I also encourage them to point their toes. So then we'll stretch up and touch your toes and hold it for about 10 seconds. And then come back up again. This time put your nose to your knees. Stretch, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then we'll come up, open our legs up to a straddle, remembering to keep our knees to the ceiling so our hips are turned out and pointing our feet, and then we'll stretch over to the right for about 10 seconds. And then we'll come up and stretch over to the left. And they can do this 2 or 3 times, and then after they're done doing that 2 or 3 times, they can square off their shoulders and put their nose to their knee. So stretch forward, nose to your knee. For about 10 seconds, and then switch nose to your left knee. Hold 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10, and then they can come up, stretch to the middle, keep your knees square, or not square, keep your knees turned out, and stretch forward, hold it for about 10 seconds, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and then they can shake it out. And then we'll come up to a squat, and then straighten their legs, and back down to a squat, and straighten, and squat, and straighten, and squat, do it about 4 or 5 times, and then straight, roll up, and then they can open their feet up, stretch up, and over to the left, the right, and then they can, if they're stretching to the right, then they can bend their left leg. It gives you more of a stretch in your hamstrings, and straighten, and then they can come up and over and stretch over to the left. And then they can bend their right leg. And come up, and now they can go down to the middle. And then once they come up, they can go into their right split. I usually have them stretch in each split for about 30 seconds. So for some of them, I'll have them sing their ABCs, and then others of them, they can just count in their head. So they'll go down into the right split, hold it for 30 seconds, switch to the left split, hold it for 30 seconds, and then into their middle split. So for their middle split, instead of their legs being up towards the ceiling, since we are picking up our hips and pushing them forward to get up and over ourselves, their knees will be facing like the front of the room. So they'll come up and over and hold it here for 30 seconds. And then after that, they can start stretching out their backs. So for some of the more advanced kids, they can just start with their roly-polies and push up to their bridge. But for some of them, it's better for them to sit in a seal stretch. So their legs are straight behind them and their hands are as close to their hips as possible, pushing back. And then after that, they can bend their legs and put their toes to their head. And then once they do that, then they can move on to their roly-polies into their bridges. So a roly-poly starts on your bottom. Squeeze your legs and use the balls of your feet and your toes to push off the floor and roll onto your back and come back up. So I'll usually have them do 3 to 5 roly-polies, and then they can lay on their back and push up into their bridge. And I usually have them do this 3 times. So the first bridge is just a regular bridge, stretch their backs out. The second bridge, I encourage them to try to straighten their arms and then straighten their legs and squeeze them together as well. And then for the third bridge, I encourage them to hold it and then kick each leg 10 times. They can do 10 on the right and then 10 on the left, or they can alternate, it does not matter, but as long as they are trying and getting that exercise in. So after those exercises, that is when we would start our across the floor. So if they were on their mat like this, we would normally have 2 children on a mat, and they would each have a little section, and they would go from the back of the mat traveling to the front of their mat for their exercises. So we usually start, we'll do 3 of each exercise, more if they're still working on mastering the exercise, or if it wasn't clean or they fell or whatever happened. So we'll usually start with handstands. We'll start with 3 clean handstands. So this is what a handstand looks like. 3 handstands. You can pause the video and do your handstands. After that, we will move on to our handstand rolls. So I try to encourage the children to hold their handstand for at least 2 seconds before they roll, so they still hit that whole handstand and it's not just a forward roll. So then they'll start their handstand rolls, go up, hold 1, 2, I got stuck. Hold on, try it again. Up, 1, 2, roll, and jump up. After that, we will move into our handstand bridges. So they will do a handstand and then land with their feet in a bridge in front of them and then stand up. So that would look like this. And they can hold it and get up. And then after that, they can progress onto their front walkovers. And then after front walkovers, we will start back walkovers. So for our back walkover progressions, some of the kids have started these. Some of them are still working on mastering just their back walkover. So ask your child, work with them. They'll know what they're capable of doing. So first they will start with back walkovers, and then they will progress on to back switchovers, and then they can do tic-tacs, and then they can do armpit rolls, and then they can do their back limbers, which only 4 or 5 are working on back limbers because those are the foundations for their back handsprings. And then after they have completed all of those exercises, that is when we would work on their chin stands, elbow stands, and headstands. So for their chin stands, I have really been working with them on squeezing and using their muscles. So when they go into a chin stand, you want them to start at the back of the mat so when they roll forward, they don't hit their face on the floor. And I encourage them to squeeze their legs together, hold their hands in front of them so that way when they push down into the floor, they can use the pads on the palm of their hand to push and balance themselves forward. So when working on a chin stand, you want to keep your knees together. And I like to tell them start by pushing your hips forward, and then you'll push your belly button forward, and then you'll roll and look at the ceiling, and then roll forward into your chin stand. I will show you a chin stand now. So you have your hands by your sides, pushing your hips, belly button, chest, and then chin into the floor. And come back up and snap. So then after that, they can work on their elbow stands. So when they work on an elbow stand, it starts in a plank position with their forearms on the floor, and I encourage them to keep their fingers open so that they can use their hands and their fingers flat on the floor for balance. And they will kick up and squeeze their legs together and then snap back down. So this is what a elbow stand looks like. They're in their plank, they're in, I can't think, and they kick up and come back down and snap. And then after that, they can move on to their headstands. I always encourage them to do their headstands where they start their squat towards where they're going. So that's just for when on stage, so they're not showing their butts to everyone. But they will start in a ball in their squat. They will go up into a tripod into their headstand. So in a tripod, your head is the point of the triangle and your two hands flank off, and they stay up on their hands and they put their knees on their elbows. So that will look like this. So they can step right up on and balance. After that, they'll go into a bug where they squeeze their knees together and lift that up into the ceiling, and then they can straighten their legs, open to a split, and then back up and roll. And that is their progressions for their headstands. I encourage them to hold each position for about 8 seconds to ensure that they have the core, their core is engaged, their glute muscles are engaged, and they can hold it there. In the dance, they only hold each position in their dance for about 4 seconds, but that's okay. Progressing on, for my girls that are working on back handsprings, I have some exercises for them. So before they start their back handsprings, I always have them do an additional 25 crunches and then a wall sit. And I usually have them hold a wall sit for about 30 seconds. So you can pause it, do your crunches, do your wall sits, and then I will show you some exercises. So the first exercise I have them do are snap downs. So they will start with their legs in front of themselves. They will touch their toes and then snap back to the floor and arch their back. And then when they come back, they'll snap back to their toes. So it'll look like this. Down, up, push, up, snap. And I usually have them do about 25 or 30 of those before we move on to our next exercise. So our next exercise, I call them bananas because the way they arch their back, it looks like a banana. So they start laying down on the floor relaxed, and then they squeeze up to a banana and down, and up and down. And I usually have them do these exercises about 25 times each as well. And then we move on to the foundation of the back handspring. So with your back handspring, you need to have a lot of power from your legs and your arms to throw yourself back and set. So this exercise you can do at home with a chair. So I encourage them to start with their arms way up by their ears, using all of their power, and then in a back handspring they'll go up, sit, and banana. So the banana is when you throw it back and do the actual flip itself. So these exercises with the chairs you can do at home. They can set, sit, and banana. and banana. It works if you have a couch and they can have a little more power when they set into it, but with this chair, I'm scared that I'll flip over and break my head. So after that, we would move into our aerials. So for aerial exercises, we would usually have the big mat rolled out and there would be mats stacked up. Obviously, not everyone has that room at home or mats like that at home. So to practice these at home, just have your child practice their hurdle and their whip. So some things they can do is on a chair, they can start with their leg up on the chair, and they can go up and throw, up and throw, up and throw. And they can do like 10 or 15 of those on each side. And then they can move into just doing hurdles. They can run and hurdle. So I'm going to scoot way back and show you what that would look like. So they can just run and hurdle and kick. I don't encourage them to do cartwheels in the house if there is not room, but they can still run and hurdle and push. So it's the same exercise that was on the chair, but now they might be doing it with a little more speed at first if they can get outside and do it. Yeah. So after that, we would move on to our dance. Their dance is called Land of a Thousand Dances, and there are like 4 or 5 different groups and sections in that dance, and all of the girls know their choreography, and the dance is not quite done yet, but because of our different age levels and skill levels, I encourage them just to practice what they have at home right now, and when we meet back again, then we will add on more choreography. So that is our intermediate tumble class.